Hi everyone, and welcome back to my podcast, Life of an Artrepreneur. I hope you've all been doing well, and I hope you've all been enjoying the UK weather last week. By the time this episode goes out, it's probably raining again, but fingers crossed it's not. But yeah, it's been lovely. I've been really enjoying the sun. Took Bella to the beach last week, which she absolutely loved. She loves the beach, just running around on the sand. I've been teaching tutorials now on YouTube and Patreon, mainly on Patreon, for about 4 years, just over 4 years. And when I started, I had no idea how to film a tutorial. I had no idea how to teach. I had no idea how to explain things. I didn't have a clue on the whole process of editing and what would look good for whoever's watching it. I literally had no idea. I kind of went into it blind, but I knew that that's the path that I did kind of want to explore. So hopefully this episode gives you a bit of an insight into that if tutorials is something that you've been thinking about for a while, whether it is teaching them or watching them. So how do you start teaching tutorials? So firstly, you want to focus on what you're best at. So whether that's figure drawing, flowers, digital painting, animal drawings, watercolors, whatever it is, you want to choose your sort of niche. So figure out the medium, the subject, and kind of zone in on that. You want to do your research and see what other artists are teaching already. Get a feel for how they explain things, what techniques they actually cover, how they edit the video. Maybe look for gaps in existing tutorials and figure out how you can make that better or put your own spin on it and add your own kind of unique twist. And even if you're a beginner, you might have techniques or use a method that no other artist has even considered before. So focus on those little things that might make you different and worth listening to and learning from. You definitely need to plan and prepare before starting to teach a tutorial. So maybe make some notes on your next few drawings that you do and really be aware of the colours that you're using, your overall process, any kind of techniques that you're using that you might think, oh, I wish I knew this earlier on. Just really take note and be aware of each step that you're taking within your process. If you've never kind of demonstrated what you're doing before, it's actually quite hard to teach someone else because you tend to just do it and you're not really thinking too much about what it is that you're actually doing. So just make a few notes with your next few drawings and try and break those techniques down into simple, easy to follow steps and use clear, good quality visuals that's really easy for people to kind of work through. To accompany your tutorial, you'll probably need a line drawing, the reference photo and a full materials list that's easy for people to access. I think though, the more that you're aware of your process and the more you start noting down what you're doing and eventually kind of speaking through it and then teaching it, over time you'll develop more of that descriptive language that's easy for people to understand. Kind of going into that straight away without sort of practicing writing down some notes or thinking of descriptive words, it's a lot harder to just jump straight into teaching and explaining what you're doing. Fun fact, 4 years ago when I started teaching tutorials on Patreon, I would film the drawing. So whatever it was that I was teaching, I would film just the drawing. I wouldn't speak. It would just pick up the pencil strokes and what I was doing. And then I'd spend hours and hours and hours recording voiceovers and then inserting those into the video. So if I was doing a certain technique or using a different colour, I'd do a voiceover and then insert it and add it to that specific bit. So as you can tell, it took me forever to do that, especially when I was doing maybe 5-6 videos every month. It took me ages. And I only did that really because I was so scared of saying the wrong thing or not coming across as professional or people thinking oh, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. With writing down a script for the voiceovers first, whenever I'd be describing the next technique, what I was doing, why I was using that colour and why I was drawing in that way, it made me really think about the overall process and why I was doing certain things, which I wouldn't have really considered before. So doing it that way with the voiceovers probably only lasted about 2 or 3 months. And then I realised I'd save so much time if I just explained what I was doing as I was doing it, as I was filming the tutorial, and then listing all the colours throughout on the screen. But I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable going into that straight away. So maybe try the voiceovers first until you've built up the descriptive language and the confidence to just sort of speak your way through it as you're doing the drawing at the same time. In terms of equipment, you want a tripod or a stand that's really sturdy that can hold either your camera or your phone. at a straight angle over your drawing. So as you're filming, it's looking straight at your drawing, it's not wobbling, it's really sturdy. I've actually always used my phone camera. I now have the iPhone 15, but 4 years ago, I think I had like the 11 possibly, which wasn't as good camera quality, whereas now the cameras on the iPhone, especially the latest ones, are pretty much as good as, if not better than some cameras, like some proper cameras. At some point I probably will get like a really good quality camera that's better than my phone, specifically for tutorials, but for now my iPhone camera is good enough. It is really, really good quality. I edit my tutorials through iMovie, and I can literally just airdrop the clips from my phone to my MacBook and then edit them through iMovie. But obviously experiment with different editing softwares and cameras, see what works for you. But if you're just starting out, I'd just keep everything as simple as possible. Use all the free editing software and apps or whatever, and probably just use your phone if it's a good quality camera. You might want to try using different formats within your tutorials, like showing your tutorials in different ways, whether it's a slightly different angle and it keeps flicking between two angles, maybe a wide shot and then a close-up shot, or maybe showing the reference photo in like the top right corner, and then as you're explaining something within the drawing, it zooms in the reference photo on that specific part, so people are always on the same page as to what bit you're working on exactly. So yeah, just try different variations and formats and see sort of what your audience likes or prefers. You can upload your tutorials to YouTube, Patreon, Skillshare. You could sell them individually on your website or as part of a course. Like, there's so many different ways to do it. The reason I use Patreon as my main teaching platform is because it builds a community of like-minded artists, and you know, they can share the work with other people in the community chat. It builds connections between them as well. And I, as like the creator, can get that immediate feedback from everyone and also get them involved into like what they want to draw for the next month and get them to vote on things and always ask for their feedback. So I'm constantly creating the best tutorials and improving my content for them. So despite whatever platform you decide to put your tutorials on, you always want to encourage questions and feedback to improve the quality of your future tutorials. As an artist, I've actually learned so much by teaching tutorials and really thinking about why I'm doing certain things and techniques, why I'm using certain colours. It really kind of forces me to slow down in a way and explain everything that I'm doing. And I wouldn't have really done that before if I had never sort of done tutorials at all, because I wouldn't have had to have sort of developed that descriptive language or explained anything. I just would have just done it and got on with it. Like, you don't really think twice about what you're doing until you have to demonstrate or explain something in a simplified way for someone else to understand it. What are the benefits of watching tutorials for artists? The obvious one being you'll learn new skills and you'll learn them faster, sort of having that guidance. You'll discover techniques that you might not have found in like books or classes or through education courses or at uni. I think especially if you're following a tutorial from an artist that you like, whether it's them as the artist that you like or their actual work, I think it's easy for you to follow. You'll be more likely to ask questions afterwards and you'll stay engaged. I like to think that my tutorials are a nice balance between being like chatty and being professional. Like, they're professionally put together and I try and talk through everything, which is important, but I don't want it to be too serious. I like it to be a bit more chatty and relaxed at the same time, just so it's easier to follow along. I think sometimes tutorials can be a bit too intense and like too information focused, and it's a lot for people to take in. So having that balance keeps the viewer more engaged, especially when they're kind of concentrating on the drawing that they're doing and trying to take in information that they're listening to and trying to watch a video. You don't want to kind of bombard them with information. So following an artist who you like and who you like listening to is always a good person to learn from and follow tutorials from. As well, I think you'll gain a bit of an insight into various like styles, like drawing styles if you're a colour pencil artist like me, and different like workflows as well. Especially if you follow a few different artists, you'll get a real feel for what it's actually like being a professional artist in like the niche that you're interested in. Another huge benefit is that it's kind of cost-effective learning. I went to uni for 3 years and studied fine art, and I guarantee I would have learned more in a week watching someone's online tutorial than I would have done at the whole 3 years of uni. We didn't really learn more, like we didn't learn how to draw, we didn't learn any techniques. They just kind of let us get on with it. But I don't know, I feel like tutorials are just such a valuable way to gain all this information. Uni was so expensive and you're going to be paying off that debt forever. But tutorials give you access to like expert guidance, sometimes for free or at a low cost compared to uni, massively low cost compared to uni. And you can often revisit that tutorial or that course or whatever it is at your own pace. So it's a win-win really. I also feel like watching other artists really sparks ideas and just gives you that extra bit of inspiration or motivation, kind of seeing how someone else got to a certain point creatively. I think structured lessons can help you overcome those creative blocks where if you got a creative block on your own, you're kind of thinking, oh, I'm not sure how to overcome this or how to tweak it. And then you might get a bit stressed out, leave it and never return to it. Whereas if you were doing that through a tutorial, I feel like the artist behind the tutorial will often give top tips on what to look out for, what to avoid, or how to overcome something in the simplest way. So when you do have that bit of a creative block or you're trying to overcome something, you'll know how to for the next time. A huge benefit of following artist tutorials is to be part of an active community of other artists who are also learning and also sharing their progress. And you can kind of learn from each other as well and make those connections with other artists that you might not have done otherwise. And in these communities like on Patreon, you can sometimes get constructive criticism from the actual artist, and you always just get those words of encouragement and support from like other like-minded creatives as well. So I think teaching and watching tutorials can benefit artists at all levels. So if you're an aspiring teacher, you can share your knowledge. You'll definitely have something valuable to offer, even if you're a beginner, because the likelihood is you'll know a lot more than other beginner artists do. And for learners, you can work through tutorials to kind of sharpen your skills, perfect your skills, develop new skills, and just accelerate your overall growth as an artist. And like I said before, make those connections. So yeah, tutorials are great. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I hope you've made it to the end. If you've been watching on YouTube, then please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already to see future upcoming episodes. If you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then I'd love it if you could leave a review. It really helps to support the podcast and share it with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. I hope you all have a lovely rest of the week and I'll be back next week with a brand new episode.